Those that know me pretty well know that I really like aliens. In fact, I sculpted a few before I started my YouTube channel. But on my journey of discovering how to create these aliens, I wanted to create one with a more sinister and dangerous type of alien, more on the level of H.R. Giger and the poor unfortunate archaeologist that happened to stumble upon him at the wrong time. So let's dig deep into this new adventure on Clayformations. Okay, let's take a trip around the studio to see if we can find some stuff. First we'll get some aluminum tape, then we'll pick out some aluminum rods. I think 4 will do. Then we'll go down here and get some tools that bend and some tools that cut. Okay, so this little feller's gonna have 3 legs and 1 neck and a big old head, so we'll have to join them at this junction point right here with a zip tie. I like using zip ties because it helps me hold things together while the glue cures. So what I do is I put the 3 rods together and then I cinch it up. And then I cinch it up. Why is this taking so long? Oh, okay. It takes a while to get it to the right size. And then you cinch it up, and then what you do is you cut off the excess, and this little piece of plastic will hold it all together while I glue it. Now I'm using a little bit of activator to cure it. I wish we didn't have to use activator. I wish that super glue would just cure. It'd be nice. Now I'll take some smaller wire and I'll wrap it around the midpoint junction right here to secure all 3 pieces together. Now we'll take the most glorious invention ever created for sculptors, which is aluminum foil tape. I can't tell you how much I love this stuff. It is wonderful. After I have the midpoint secure, I'll go ahead and bend all the legs out, creating a 3-legged tripod. And that there is a pretty good start. And now I'll add a little bit more to the tripod junction point. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I'll start to bend it into its preliminary pose, starting with the neck and the legs. Now I'll check out its position on the base, and it's a little bit too long, so I'm going to cut some off. Okay, we'll place him back on the base, and I think that's just about right. Now I'll wrap it with some wire to give it some more strength. And for a little more added fun, I'm going to wrap the whole thing in some aluminum foil tape. And what you're going to witness now is pretty much how this whole project went. Yeah, this is the first of many drops and cracks and breaks with this project, and I will regale you with those as we continue through the video. But for now, let's continue wrapping this guy up with the aluminum foil tape. I like to keep my pieces really thin and wiry, and the aluminum foil tape is really conducive to that end. I really enjoy working with it. And now that we have our armature prepped and ready to go, we can start to add the clay. As we begin to add the clay to the armature, it's important to remember not to rush this step. A typical thing that most sculptors do, myself included, is we'll start adding clay and then we will also begin to add the details. What happens if you start to do details at this point, your piece could be out of balance or it could be not proportioned correctly. So do your best to fight the urge from starting to add details too soon. I believe one of the main reasons why a lot of sculptors start doing detail before they bulk out the whole sculpture is because, as I've said before, this is what we call the ugly phase. And since it is the ugly phase, you're looking at it and you're going, this looks ugly. I don't like the way this looks. It's not turning out the way I want it to. So usually what you end up doing is taking the clay off and starting over. And take it from somebody who knows. It's much easier to remove the clay and start all over at this point in the sculpture than after working hours on beautiful detail that you're just going to have to take off anyway. Oh boy, I got a package today from Amazon. Wonder what it is. See? Want to know what they are? Christmas ornaments. And what in the world does a Christmas ornament have to do with a sculpture like this? I'll show you. It's going to be for his head. But before we can attach it, there's something we have to do to the inside first. Come on, I'll show you what I'm going to do. So the first thing we'll do is we'll take some silver paint and we'll squeeze it into the jar. Then we'll take some black acrylic paint, put it over the silver, and then we'll add some water and make a silver metallic wash. Now I'll take my disposable dropper, suck up some paint, and start pouring it to the inside of the Christmas ornament. Okay, the reason why I wanted to use this particular technique is because I didn't want to see any brush strokes on the orb. I wanted it to have the look of a solid steel ball, but I couldn't do that because the weight of the steel would have caused too much tension on the neck, and over time it would end up cracking the sculpture. So by coating the inside of the Christmas ornament with the paint wash, instead of a solid steel ball, you have a completely hollow steel ball that's light enough to use on your sculpture. Since the hole on the ornament is a little too big, I'll take some Epoxy Sculpt and create a key. I'll form the Epoxy Sculpt over the hole, I'll put it over the wire, take it off, and then after it cures it'll be easier to attach. Alright, here, here, and here we'll put long claws. Here, here, and here we'll attach those claws on the base. Sounds good in theory, but just keep watching and you'll find out exactly what happens. Okay, I'm going to need these claws incredibly durable, so I'm going to use Epoxy Sculpt. And after they've cured, I'll take them over to the bandsaw to cut them in half. After all, I had to find some reason to justify my purchasing it. Now with my drill press, I'll cut a little divot into the bottom of the claw for the wire to fit into. It should work, right? Well, the only way to find out is just to keep on going and see if it works. So the first thing we'll do is we'll take each claw and take the super glue and baking soda mixture and attach each claw to the end of each leg. Now we'll get this last claw connected to his arm and oops. Okay, let's try this one more time. Well, if I was wondering if that was going to be strong enough, I guess that answers my question. Now I'll reinforce those glued areas with some Epoxy Sculpt. Now let's try our preliminary fit on the base, and I can already see a problem. So here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to bend and pose the legs so they'll be positioned correctly. Remember how we talked about not adding detail until you get to a certain point? This is exactly why. Now let's see how it looks. I think that'll work. Now I'll mark out all the positions where I'll drill the holes where the claws will be connected to the base. I'll be right back. Okay, I've drilled a hole here, here, and here. Now let's do a test fit. That looks pretty good. Now I'll take some super glue and glue the tips of the claws into the base, and that should work, right? Right? Now on the claws there's some rough points where I covered the glue junction points, and I wanted the claws to be real smooth and shiny, so I'll go ahead and smooth them out with a grinder and fine sand them with the sandpaper, and they should look a little bit better. Alright, now that the base is secure and the sculpture is all glued and secured to the base, we can actually get back to sculpting. And I have to make a confession here. Even though technically I'm still bulking out the forms, I'm still not doing a lot of detail, I really enjoyed this part of the sculpture. This particular section of the piece, I wasn't constrained by anything. I didn't have to worry about muscle proportions. I didn't have to worry about any type of normal structure. Although it does have a head, a neck, and legs, it wasn't anything that we had seen before on our planet. This is something from somewhere else. So there were no rules to follow. I could just really get into the sculpture and almost kind of let the clay tell you where it's going to go. And that lack of restraint really made this part of the sculpture incredibly enjoyable. Because later on, well, things don't go as planned and they aren't as enjoyable. Now I'm adding some steel ball bearings to the design. And at this point, I really have no other reason for doing it other than I think it kind of looks cool. And after I did the first leg, I really liked the way it looks, so I went ahead and did ball bearings for all three sections of the tripod junction point. So while I'm enjoying myself putting on all the steel ball bearings and just sculpting to my heart's content, I'm not paying any attention whatsoever to what's going on down by the base. After all, everything should have worked, right? Right? Well, no. As you can see, the tips of the claws that I glued in did not work. They broke, and now we have to come up with some other alternative. Alright, so what I'll do is I will cut a piece of clay off of the neck, and I'll use the clamp jig, and that should work, right? Right? As we continue with this project, I'm less inclined to think so. But nevertheless, we will carry on. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm doing the basic shapes and forms and the blocking out of how the skin meets the claw. And later on, I'll be adding some finer details, but I just wanted to get the basic shapes for now. Like I said before, I don't want to add too many details because I still might want to change things later on. Like right now, because I'm moving this clay for reasons that I will let you know later on in the video. And something else we're going to do a little different. I'm going to take a little bit of Fimo and make some larger spheres, but in increment size, large to small, because right here, there's not enough size difference within the metal spheres. I want them to go from really tiny and then the middle be bigger and then taper back down to small again. So I'll take these ones I made out of Fimo and I'll attach it to, well, what I would call the belly section of the alien, and we'll see how that turns out. So while I'm adding more clay to the larger spheres right here, I'll begin to develop what will be the key. I'll let you know why a little bit later. And this sphere is a little too small, so I'll take this smaller one out, take this new one I made and add it to the lineup. I actually think that might create a better flow. Okay, the time has come. I can wait no longer. It is time for the details. I think what I'll do is I'll just start putting some clay around the spheres and refine that a little more, and then just work my way from the middle of the alien and then down to the legs. I might periodically go in different areas, but it just depends on how the flow goes. You know, sometimes that's just what you have to do. You just have to go with the flow. Unfortunately, and really fortunately, I had to go with the flow several times on this piece. So many changes had to be made as I went along, because the idea that I had was completely different in the beginning, and then as I went along, certain parts of the design didn't work and I had to change directions, and then another piece of it wouldn't work and I had to change directions again. And as soon as we're completed with the legs here, you'll understand what I had to do in order to make this whole thing work. And as I got towards the end, another idea came to me that will make this sculpture even more interesting and make it all come together. Now, I know I'm being vague now, and I know I'm kind of alluding to it, but just bear with me. I promise you that it'll all make sense in the end. And I also want to make sure that I never take my viewers' time for granted. I really do appreciate you sticking around. I know this may sound a little strange, but I really enjoy H.R. Giger's work. There's just something so aesthetically pleasing about his designs and the way he creates his incredible yet disturbingly beautiful art, which is what I'm trying to capture in this piece. Okay, change in plans. I don't want to work on the head and neck with the bottom still attached, so we're going to have to cut that off. Remember the key I was talking about earlier while I was working on the bottom half? We're going to take two brass tubes, one wider than the other, and make a key. So the top will slide into the bottom, and that should work, right? I hope so. So I'll glue the smaller diameter to the bottom, then I'll attach the wider tubing to the neck. And then after I complete the neck, it should slide right into the bottom part of the sculpture. Alright, now that we've completed the key, we can go ahead and attach the orb to his neck. And because of the key we created earlier, that shouldn't be too hard. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the clay from the neck because I want to start the taper fresh from the orb all the way down to the neck. Alright, now we can start putting some clay on the neck and begin to sculpt how the head's going to look. Okay, I wanted the alien to have a look of like 4 fingers or flanges that could grip the orb, and if he wanted to, he could let the orb go. Like if he wanted to, like if he wanted to let the orb go, Or if you wanted to use it like as a weapon, like he could fling his neck back and throw the orb and let it go and kill whoever he wanted to kill, and then walk over to his kill and then eat it and then grab the orb again. Maybe that's how he uses it. Who knows? Let your imagination go. I had to remove some of the clay at the base of the neck because it was a little too thick and I needed the taper to be a little thinner because of something I'll be adding in a little bit. But for the time being, what I'm doing now is sharpening the fingers that are wrapped around the orb and refining the lines, making them crisp and clean. Trying my best to refrain from adding details because I'm really liking the way that it's looking. That's looking just about right for now. Now we'll add the correct amount of clay on the neck with the correct amount of taper. And now for some really cool stuff. Wait till you see what we're going to do next. Okay, so we've established that his big orb is a solid metal ball that he uses to kill his prey. So we're going to go ahead and lock that in. That's part of the lore. And since he doesn't have muscles, he's going to have something to expand and contract in order to open his fingers to let the ball go. So I came up with this idea that he has these springy things that attach to his fingers and then to his body. That way he can reel his neck back and move it forward, and those springs will contract and let the ball go, literally crushing his prey or anything else that makes him mad. And later on in the video, we are going to establish that something is going to really make him mad. So now that we've established that, I want to tell you a little bit more about the alien and the planet that he comes from. First, the alien is biological metal. He literally has a symbiotic relationship between himself and his planet. The iron and metal ore on his planet literally gives him sustenance, so he consumes the metal and the metal becomes his biological structure. So we can imagine that his literal survival depends on his planet, that he is quite territorial. And there will be literal hell to pay if he finds you on his planet. And later on in the video, we're going to find out that there is somebody on his planet that really pisses him off. And by the way, I have to say that those spring contractors that he has on his neck really made my fingers sore. So when I got back to sculpting and pinching the clay, my fingers were kind of screaming at me. So really right now, the only thing left to do is complete all the details and clean up all the lines between the metal and the clay, and these things are ready to go to the oven. So we'll take his neck and head and his 3 legs to the oven to be baked. Okay, changing plans. Remember earlier in the video when this happened? Well, we are going to abandon that entirely and do something completely new and different. First, I'll draw out a new base pattern, then I'll cut out the pattern on the bandsaw, then I'll smooth out the edges with my sanding belt, then I'll smooth out everything with my sander. Maybe I should start a woodworking channel. I got a bandsaw. Come on, dude, focus. You've got enough to deal with right here, okay? Well, it seems like I made this part a little too big for the dome, so I'll have to cut it down. So I'll use my trusty IKEA cutter and use that as a guide. Then we'll take it out to the shop to cut it down. Ooh, nice. Maybe I should start a woodworking channel. Well, that looks like it's gonna work, right? Right? Well, at the moment, let's not think about that, and we'll just put a coat of paint on the edge of the base and then glue the styrofoam domes onto the wood. Now that the styrofoam domes are securely glued to the wooden base, we are going to rock these styrofoam domes out with a rock. And I am going to thoroughly enjoy myself by taking out all my frustrations on this poor defenseless styrofoam. And I enjoyed every second of it. Now I'm going to take my golden gel matte acrylic just to seal in all the dust and crumbs so it wouldn't continue to crumble as I went on to the next step. Now I'll take some blue painter's tape and tape around the edge of the base, because what I'm going to be using now is the highly durable Flex and Fill. Although the acrylic gel is strong, the Flex and Fill is a lot stronger. So I'll thin it down with a little bit of water and painting on a thin coat over the entire base. And after we're done with this, we'll set it aside to cure. Hopefully, moving forward, things are going to be going a little bit smoother now, right? Right? Now that the neck and legs are cured, I'm going to very carefully put the neck into the clamp. Alright, now I'll adjust the arm so that it lines up with the key on the legs. And we'll slide it right in. That seems to fit. Okay, now we'll take some super glue and permanently attach the two pieces together. Houston, we have capture. Now we'll improve the bond some more with some baking soda and super glue. And now we'll cover the entire section with some epoxy sculpt, and that should give us enough strength to continue on and not have any more problems. Right? We shall soon see, but right now we have to paint the base to look like a giant wet cow patty. Well, maybe if we add some dry brushing, it'll look less like a cow patty. Yeah, I think that works. So after we do the first coat of dry brushing, we'll go over it with a lighter color, and that'll make those details pop even more. Now we'll add a little bit of green to add some life to it, but the alien doesn't really like to eat the green stuff. If any of the green stuff actually gets in, he just spits it out. Okay, things are running pretty smooth, right? There just aren't enough dirty words in the dictionary for me to say right now. And I know quite a few without even having to use a dictionary. So after it fell over, the claws broke off, and he lost his kneecap right over here. So I'm going to do what I should have done from the beginning and take this metal rod and shove it right up his rear end. So, are you ready? Let's move on with a colonoscopy. Alright, with my highly scientific and technical surgical tool, also known as a drill, we'll put a hole in his rear end, and then I'll put some epoxy glue on it and put it right in there. Now by leaving the wire long, that should give us the stability that we need. And then by gluing the claws into the base, they will no longer be the weight-bearing part of the sculpture. Okay, let's go ahead and glue the claws to the base. And I don't like that right there. There's not enough surface for the glue to hold it, so I'll put a little piece of wire, glue it down with super glue, and for a little bit extra stability, we'll put some epoxy sculpt on it. I'm not taking any more chances. Now the effect that I'm trying to achieve is to make the claws look like they're clamping down on the rock and sort of clenching in and removing parts of the rock because his claws are kind of tearing it apart, leaving his footprint or claw print as he walks. Now I'll paint around the claw marks, and then I'll add a little black in the middle of it to make it look like a hole. And now with the alien finally completely secure to the base, we can move on to the neck and complete the alien. And yes, we are done with the alien, but we're not done with the sculpture. Back when we were talking about the story about this alien and the planet he comes from and how he eats metal to sustain himself and how territorial he is, since we have a new base with a little dome on one part and a bigger dome on the other for the alien to stand on, we needed something to stand on that little dome. So I came up with the idea of a spaceman archaeologist. This astronaut Indiana Jones stops by this planet to see if there were any valuable minerals, rocks, or ore that he can use for himself. So as he's prospecting and looking around the planet, collecting all the valuable pieces that he can, he climbs up a rock and comes face to face with the alien that's about to crush him. Okay, using my little Roman soldier here, I'm going to scale him up. Then I'll take a piece of wire, fold it in half, crimp it, twist it for his body, cut the top, and then that will be his arms. Now I need to leave some length on the legs because I'm going to be inserting them into the base about right up to there. That's where his feet will touch the ground. Okay, even though he is kind of on the small side, I still want to bulk him up a little bit with some aluminum foil because it will give the clay something to hold on to. We'll go ahead and wrap up his arms, and then we'll start putting on some clay. What's interesting is, remember how we talked about not adding detail until everything is bulked out? I didn't have any problem with wanting to start any detail. And the main reason for that is because I really wasn't sure if I could even sculpt this astronaut. In fact, I looked through my entire inventory of sculptures and I have never done a small figurine human sculpture. I haven't even made very many with clothes, let alone a spacesuit. So here I am doing all these wrinkles and cloth, hoping that I get it right. All I can say is never let the fact that you've never tried something before stop you from doing something new. I think what my art teacher called it back in the day, Mr. Ryan, he called it the blank canvas syndrome. You sit there and you look at this blank canvas and you get kind of overwhelmed and you say to yourself, where do I even begin? And that's where I was with this little astronaut guy. Once I got the scale and size right and the armature all completed, I looked at it and I go, oh my God, I don't even know where to begin. So what I did is I just started putting clay on him. And I think that's the best advice I can give. If you start a sculpture and you're unsure about where to start, just start putting clay on it. You can always redo it. It's not what we like to do, but at least it won't keep us from getting started. Okay, you can see here that I am making him a pickaxe and a shovel, and there's a reason for that. You see, I thought about giving our archaeologist a big laser weapon that he used to dig up the earth, kind of like strip mining. Then I thought, no, I don't think so, because it would give our archaeologist somewhat of an advantage over our alien. In other words, when you looked at the sculpture, no matter what you thought the alien was capable of, you would see the astronaut archaeologist and realize that he is completely and totally cooked. Okay, the astronaut is baking, so I've covered the alien's base in plastic, and now we can go ahead and start painting him a lovely shade of black. Black is my absolute favorite color. Black can cover up a multitude of mistakes, and it can also make you look somewhat thin even though you're not. The nice part about painting next to the orb right here is because it's hard and solid, and if I happen to make a mistake, I can just scrape that black paint right off. Okay, now we can remove the plastic and paint the claws. Now that the claws are painted, the astronaut should be out of the oven and ready to paint. There's something that I forgot to mention about this astronaut archaeologist. When we create something, we're not just making a sculpture. We are also creating an emotion or an attitude. And how something is posed can determine whether your sculpture has life or if it's just completely lifeless and boring. The alien's pose and posture is quite obvious. He's rearing back, getting ready to attack. He's squaring off. The archaeologist, on the other hand, is totally caught by surprise. And I wanted to give him a fight or flight response, which is the reason why I have one arm forward, one arm back, and leaning back a little bit. So even though a sculpture is static and still, it can still show emotion and a possible movement. This guy has to make a decision in 1 second whether he should stand his ground and fight, or if he should turn around and run like hell back to the spaceship. Kind of like somebody took a picture 1 second before something actually happens. And then unfortunately, we the viewer are left to speculate on what actually took place and what is the actual fate of our astronaut archaeologist. So, what do you think? Do you think our archaeologist stood his ground? Or did he run? I'll leave that to you. Hey everyone, if you've made it this far, you are a rock star and you wouldn't even consider taking food away from an alien, which makes you my kind of people. Before we say goodbye, if you could do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up if you think I deserve it. If you'd like to see new videos coming up, please consider subscribing. If you would like to see other videos like this one, please feel free to browse through my channel and watch as many videos as you like. And finally, I'd like to give my appreciation to all my subscribers. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support. Everybody take care, and we'll see you next time.